So hello friends and welcome to Digimento. I hope I am audible to you. If there is any issue with the network or if it's not audible, if the video is not clear or anything else, let me know. Okay, let me know in the comment section, and if you are attending the session also, let me know in the comment section. So hi Gajalakshmi. Hello, anybody else who have joined the class? So if you have joined the class, let me know in the comment section. Okay, so let's begin. So we were taking up methods of research. That is the second module from the unit 2. So module 2 from unit 2. Okay, so unit 2 is research aptitude. Unit 2 research aptitude, and from unit 2 we were discussing module 2. So this is module 2, that is methods of research. Here we will discuss experimental research, descriptive research, historical, qualitative and quantitative methods of research. So hi Gajalakshmi, hi Shama. I am good Shama, hope you are also doing good. Thank you for asking. And ethnographic research is descriptive. I have to check. I'll tell you. Manish, hello. Hi Manish. Hi Lalit. Lalit is saying slow internet connection. So Lalit, could you please check anybody else having internet issue? In that case, I'll check from my side. So if it's only for Lalit, let's see. Okay, if anybody else is having any internet issue or anybody else is having any issues with the audio or anything, let me know in the comment section now. And hi Almelu, hi, good evening. So let's begin. Okay, I think we don't need to wait much. We will just begin the session. Okay. So let's begin the session now. Before that, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe. This is our channel. Please do subscribe if you have not yet subscribed to our channel. And also, please press the bell icon for receiving the notification. So, press the bell icon also after subscribing. Lalit says that it's at my end. Okay, Lalit. Okay. Lalit, if there is an issue, you can watch the video later also. Okay. Hi. Then Sumati. Hi, Sumati. Good evening. Hello, Sumati. Okay, so again, if you are preparing for competitive exams like GATE, NTA, UGC, NET or PGT Computer Science, you can avail our online courses. So you can avail our online courses and the details are available at www.digimento.com. So this is the website. So www.digimento.com, or you can also call to this number for getting more details about the online courses that we provide. Okay. Now, we have already seen all this, what is research design and all these things, okay. Hi Rani, good evening. So yesterday we discussed about descriptive research. We discussed about case studies, observations and survey, advantages and disadvantages of descriptive research. So if you have any doubts from whatever we have learned till yesterday, you can ask me now. Now we will come to historical research, but if you have any doubts from whatever we have studied till yesterday, you can ask me, okay. So let's start. Okay. So historical method, that is historical method of doing the research or conducting the research. So historical method utilizes historical sources like documents, remains, etc. to study the events or the ideas of the past. So history means some event of the past. So history refers to past occurrence, past incidents, etc. So historical method of research, it utilizes historical sources like documents, remains, etc. in order to study events or ideas of the past. So it to do more research or to study any event or anything of the past. So for that, historical sources are used. Maybe there are some historical documents available, historical remains available, etc. So these are used. And historical methods includes philosophy of persons and groups at any remote point of time. So in historical method, philosophy of persons and groups at any remote point of time is included. Okay. And what is the purpose of conducting historical research or historical method of research is to collect, verify and synthesize evidence from the past to establish facts that defend or refute a hypothesis. So this is the purpose. So I'll explain it in simple language. So the purpose is to collect, that is collection of data or some of the information of the past, or what we can call as some evidence of the past. So collect, then verify, that is you have to verify the data and synthesize the evidence from the past to establish facts that defend or refute a particular hypothesis. Hypothesis, we know it's an assumption. So assumption. And under historical method, it uses a secondary and variety of primary documentary evidence. It uses secondary as well as a variety of primary documentary evidence. So this is how it is. So it uses secondary and a variety of primary documentary evidence. Now coming to the characteristics of historical research. First, it depends upon data observed by others rather than by the investigator. So the historical research, it depends upon data that is observed by others. Why? Because it is dependent on the evidence collected in the past. So because the research, that is the historical research, is dependent on the evidence that is collected in the past, because of that the data is not actually collected by the researcher himself. Now if I am doing a historical research, I am doing a research about the past incidents or based on past evidences, based on history. So I cannot actually make my own observations or can collect my own data, but I'll depend on the data that is collected by somebody else in the past. Okay. Now depends on data observed by others other than the investigator. So not investigator alone, but by some others. Now, much research claiming to be historical is an undisciplined collection, inappropriate, unreliable or biased information. So, because of that, much research claiming to be historical, that is the historical research or those research which claims to be historical, it is undisciplined collection. Why? Because the data is not collected by the researcher himself or herself, and also it's inappropriate, sometimes unreliable and biased, because see, the relevance of the data or how much you can depend on the data is always in question in case of a historical research. While the historical research is similar to the reviews of literature which precede other forms of research, the historical approach is more exhaustive, seeking out information from a large array of sources. Now here the explanation between the difference between the literature review and historical research. Okay, so historical research is similar to review of literature. So it is similar, but we cannot say that it is same as literature review. Why? Because in historical research, in-depth research is done. That is, Historical approach is more exhaustive and it seeks out information from a large array of sources. That is why it is even more broader. That is, historical research. Now, in historical research, we cannot just say that it is a kind of literature review. It's similar to literature review, but it is even broader than literature review, because here the purpose is to seek information exhaustively from a large sources, or so many sources. Okay. Now, let's see what are the advantages of historical research. So, first one, it permits, one second. Yeah, first one, it permits the investigation of topics that could be studied in no other way. So here what is possible? Investigation of topics that could be studied in no other way. Like for example, suppose you are doing a research on some past events. Okay. Now, some past events or whatever has occurred in the past. Now, what happens is that you don't have any other option. Now, there is no option that you can collect the information, but to depend on the past evidences. So, basically, the advantage of historical research is that you can depend upon historical sources, or you can depend upon the past resources that somebody else have found out, where you do not have any scope of investigation, or you do not have any scope of getting the evidence or the information or the data. Okay, and it is the only research method that can study evidence from the past. Okay, so this is the only research method which can study the evidence from the past. So that also makes it very important. So only research method that can study evidence from the past. The historical method is well suited for trend analysis. This is a very important point. Trend analysis. What does it mean? Trend analysis means, for example, if a particular issue or let's take for example poverty. Now, this is 2020. So, you can depend on the past resources to understand, maybe from 1947 when we got independence, from 1947 to 2020, what are the changes that have happened. Trend basically refers to the changes happened. Okay. Now, the disadvantages. So, we will see that there is more disadvantages than advantages for historical research. The only advantage is that when there is no other source of getting information, historical research is good. But coming to disadvantage, first, we cannot control for threats to internal validity. So, we cannot control the threats to internal validity. That is, the validity of the data cannot be understood, or validation of data cannot be made. Okay, we do not know how much reliable is the data. Next, the limitations are imposed due to content analysis. So, due to content analysis, limitations are imposed. Then, researchers cannot ensure representation of the sample. So, sample representation means that whatever is using for conducting a research, we know that suppose if you cannot go and question or interview or give the questionnaire to each and everyone, and for that you will have a sample. So here the thing is that sample population, we know the sample has to be collected in an unbiased manner. So it should be representative in nature, which means the sample population should represent every stakeholder or every group in a particular larger group. So here the disadvantage is that the researchers cannot ensure representation of the sample. So representation of the sample in the sense that researchers are not sure that the sample population represents everyone or every different categories. Okay. I'll just take up the comments. If you have any doubts, you can raise them. I'll just take up. So few more have joined. No, Arjun. Hi Arjun. Hello. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. Okay. Now, third thing is that there will be a bias in interpreting the sources. So, the evidence or the data is historical in nature. Now, the problem is that there can be a bias in interpreting historical sources. That means you are interpreting something in the past. You have the data for some past events, past occurrences. So, what you are doing is you are trying to interpret in your own way the past occurrences or the past events. So, it can be biased. Now, the problem here is that the data or the evidences are collected by some other individual and the research is done by some other individual. And the problem is that the interpretation by one and data collection by one. So, the way the person who has collected the data has interpreted may not be the same as how the researcher is interpreting. So, that can lead to bias in interpreting sources. Next is interpreting sources is very time consuming. So, it is very time consuming. Okay. Because the same issue, why it is time consuming is because the data is collected by someone else. So, data collected by someone else, whereas interpreted by someone else. Now, the problem is that the person who is interpreting is a researcher. If suppose if I collect some data and suppose you are trying to interpret it, it is very difficult for you. It will take a lot of time for you. So that is why interpretation of the data is time consuming. The sources of historical materials may be problematic. So the sources of historical materials may be problematic. That is the sources. The researcher, we do not know what are the sources. So that can be an issue. Lack of control over the external variable, because the researcher here does not have any control over the external variable, external factor. So these are some of the disadvantages of historical research to experimental research. But before that, I want to clarify if you have any doubts. So I'll just take up the comments. Ask me if you have any doubts. Take some 1 minute or something, 1 or 2 minutes to go through whatever you have studied, whatever we discussed here. So, network issue. Okay, let me check. Sumati. So, anybody else having network problem? Network issue? Alamelu. Okay, no, Manish has commented that today light network, everything is okay. Thank you. Yes. So, anybody else having network issue? So, anybody else, any doubts or anything? Hi Sandeep, good evening. Can you tell me anybody else having any network issue? No, I think we will continue. Why nobody is responding? What happened? What happened to you all? Now clear. Okay. So any doubts, anything? Historical research is very easy, that's why I haven't. Okay. Okay, it's okay, fine network. Okay, so yes, I think we will come to the next topic, that is experimental method. Okay, shall we continue? What happened? Why nobody is responding? I'm not getting any responses. What happened? Okay, let's start anyways. So experimental research. So you know what is experiment? Experiment means trying or doing. Okay, continue. Okay, so experiment means conducting experiments. It's based on conducting experiments. That is by doing. You are trying to find out something by doing something. So it's a blueprint of the procedure that enables the researcher to maintain control over the all factors that may affect the result of an experiment. So experimental method is a blueprint of the procedure that enables the researcher to maintain control over all factors that may affect the result of an experiment. Now, research conducted with a scientific approach. So, we have already discussed that fact that experimental research can be conducted mostly in case of scientific subjects. Research conducted with a specific or scientific approach where a set of variables are kept constant while the other set of variables are being measured are as the subject of experiment. So here in case of experimental method, so two sets of subjects or variables, sorry. So it's conducted with the scientific approach where one set of variables are kept constant. So one set is kept constant, whereas the other set of variables are being measured as subject of experiment. That is, it varies, experiment and constant. Okay, constant and experiment. Relationship between two or more variables is tested by performing experiments. So relationship between two or more variables. The relationship between two or more variables are tested by performing experiments. That is how the two variables are correlated or interrelated to each other. How is this tested? It is tested through conducting various experiments. Okay. Now, the relationship between dependent and independent variables is tested under controlled settings. So, the relationship between a dependent and an independent variable, it is tested under control settings. Dependent variable means one variable that is dependent on another. So, dependent variable, it is dependent on other variable. Okay. Nazrina, hi, good evening. Shama, tell me. Shama, what happened? Shama, what type of set are constant? I mean, while conducting a research, there can be few things that has to be kept constant and certain variables that will be varying. Okay, we will discuss few of the examples. Okay, don't worry. Blueprint and layout are the same or not? No, blueprint and layout are not the same actually, because you know, blueprint means the entire how it is done or the entire thing is there, but layout is only a broad outline. Okay. Okay, now the relationship between the dependent variables. Dependent variable is one variable that is dependent on some other variable and independent variable is tested under controlled settings. Okay. They are often used where there is time priority in a causal relationship, consistency in a causal relationship, and magnitude of the correlation is great. So, in what circumstances circumstances are the experimental research is used. So it's used where there is time priority in a causal relationship, consistency in a causal relationship, and also the magnitude of the correlation is great. That is correlation, the magnitude of the relationship between two variables is great. and it is used in sciences like sociology and psychology, physics, chemistry, biology and medicine. Why? In all these subjects there is a large scope for doing experiments or conducting experiments. So in these subjects there are a scope for conducting the experiments or for doing the various experiments. Okay. Now let's come to the definitions given by different people for the same. Hi Rahul, good evening. So according to Santa Palella and Feliberto Martins, experimental research is the experiment in which the researcher manipulates an experimental variable not proven. So according to them, what is experimental research? It's an experiment. Experiment means you are doing something, in which the researcher manipulates an experimental variable which is not proven. So here the researcher manipulates an experimental variable, that is manipulating the variable which is not proven. Okay, so this is experimental research. Now according to these researchers, the conditions must be strictly controlled. So the research is conducted under strictly controlled conditions in order to describe in what way and for what cause a phenomena is produced or can occur. So according to these researchers, the conditions are strictly controlled, and in order to describe in what way and for what cause a phenomena is produced or can occur. Now according to Phidias Arias, these definitions are not important for you, but just to give you, we do not really get a correct definition for experimental research, but to make this concept clear, I have given all these. So experimental research is a process that involves subjecting an object or group of individuals under certain conditions, stimuli or treatment to observe the effects or reactions that occur. Okay. So experimental research is a process that involves subjecting an object or a group of individuals under certain conditions, stimuli or treatment to observe the effects or reactions that occur. Now Shama is asking me why lots of definitions. The reason is that experimental research, it's a little bit confusing to explain it that way. So by understanding the definition, you need not study all these definitions at all, just to give you a clarity. And after explaining all these definitions, maybe you will get some more clarity regarding what is experimental research. So that is the only purpose of giving the examples here. Okay. So under experimental research, see this definition given by Phidias Arias, it's very easy. So see, it is a process where certain objects or a group of individuals, people or individuals, they are put under certain conditions. So they are put under certain conditions, and under these conditions, what is really observed, the changes that happen to them, that is the effect of the reactions that occur or the changes are observed. Okay. According to Douglas Montgomery, experiment research is an experiment in which one or more variables are deliberately manipulated. So experimental research is an experiment in which one or more variables are deliberately manipulated. That is what we said. There will be some set of constant variables. So this is constant. There is no change to constant variables. But also on the other hand, there are changing variables or variables, okay, that changes, dynamic ones. Now here experiment research is an experiment. Experiment means you are doing something where a group of variables will be changed deliberately or manipulated deliberately. Why this is done, why it is manipulated deliberately or why it is changed deliberately, the reason is that the change or why it is changed, the reason is that when it is changed, it will undergo certain changes and the observations can be made, the changes can be observed. Okay, that is the reason. Now coming to characteristics of experimental research. Okay, there must be two groups. So there must be two groups. One group in which the factors and variables are not modified, that is constant. So there must be two groups, and in one group the changes are not there, or where the variables are not modified and in which the manipulation is carried out. Second group is where the changes are made or manipulations are carried out. So there must be two groups, and one in which the factors in the variables are not modified, and in which the manipulation is, second one in which the manipulation is carried out. So one is constant, another one is changing, dynamic. Okay, Sandeep is saying that it's buffering. For anybody else, is it buffering? Let me know so that I can see if there is any network issue here. I'll just check. Rahul, lot of network issue today. Okay, anybody else having a network issue? I'll just try to, I just checked my internet speed now. I was just checking that. So it's fine here, I think. So for Alamelu, there is no issue. Anybody else having issues or no issues, let me know. No, it's fine. Okay. So, second characteristic, the researcher intervenes by modifying the variables or factors that affect the experiment and observes the reactions that are generated. So, here how is the research done? It is done by modifying or changing variables or factors. Changing certain variables or factors that affects the experiment and observes the reaction that are generated. So by observing the reactions that are generated. Okay. Now with two equivalent groups, the application of the experiment is established in a random way in order to be able to make the valid relationship from the experimental data. So with two equivalent groups, with two groups, the application of the experiment is established in a random way. So with two groups, the application is established in a random way. That means without, random means without planning or, okay, random, in order to be able to make the valid relationship from the experimental data. Now let's come to the basic principles of experimental research design. So let's see what are the basic principles of experimental research design. So for Manish, no issues. Shama, no issues. Rani, now fine. Sumati, voice is audible. Nazrina, no issue. Now, the basic principles of experimental research or research design. Professor Fisher has enumerated 3 principles of experimental design. So, these are the 3 principles which has to be followed for conducting experimental design. Principle of replication. Replication means replicate or duplicate. Principle of randomization, that is random selection. Third is principle of local control. So these are the 3 basic principles of experimental research design. Principle of replication, randomization and principle of local control. So these are the 3. Now let's first see what is principle of replication. So principle of replication means experiment should be repeated more than once. That is replication. So duplication of experiments, or the experiment should be conducted more than one time, because only if repeated experiments are conducted, then it will give an idea whether it is true or not. So just by conducting one experiment, we cannot get the actual results. Okay, sometimes it may be because not because of the accuracy, maybe because of matters of chances or anything, the experiment must have produced some results. So experiments should be repeatedly conducted in order to check whether it is reliable information or not. So reliability can be checked. So to check the reliability, so experiment should be repeated more than once. Each treatment is applied in many experimental units instead of one. So each treatment is applied in many experimental units instead of one unit. Then accuracy of the experiment increases with replication. So accuracy will increase. That's what we said. When we conduct more number of experiments on the same thing, then accuracy will improve. Second is principle of randomization. Randomization means being very random in choosing. Okay. So here second principle that has to be followed is principle of randomization. It provides protection against the effect of extraneous factors by randomization. So here we can avoid any kind of bias, because why bias can be avoided? The reason is that basically by choosing random sample, then the unbiasedness will increase. Okay, so it becomes more unbiased. So unbiased is a very good character, or research should be actually unbiased, and it will help in better estimate the estimation of the experimental error. So randomization or randomization will help in better estimating the errors in the experiment. Next is the principle of local control. So principle of local control. Extraneous factor is made to vary deliberately over as wide a range as necessary. That is, extraneous factors, they are made to vary deliberately. So they will not be the same. They will vary deliberately. Deliberately means purposefully. So this will help plan the experiment in a manner that can perform a two-way analysis of the variance. So the analysis can be conducted in two ways. The two methods, two ways of conducting the analysis of a variance. It can eliminate the variability due to extraneous factors from the experimental error. All these you will understand by reading itself. That's why I am not explaining all these very simple concepts. Now the thing is that you have to make your own notes, short notes for revision. Otherwise it can be a little difficult to recollect everything just before the examination. And also one more thing is that here in case of research methodology and all, the most difficult problem is to gather the notes. So sources or the notes are like available at different sources. They are fragmented in various sources. So I am trying to bring all of them together and trying to give you a comprehensive idea about the entire syllabus of the exam. So my notes will be very much helpful to you. So please try to write down short notes for your revision purpose. I'll share the PPT also on the Telegram channel. Okay. Now we will also see the types of experimental research. Simple experimental research. So these are the types. Multivariate analysis, then case study, predictive or correlation analysis. So these are the four types of experimental research. Four types of experimental research. Okay. I'll take up the comments. Sumati, both AV fine now, audio and video. Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, these are four types of experimental research, and this is all. So tomorrow we will meet again with qualitative methods. So this is a fourth kind of research. Okay, qualitative methods we will discuss elaborately tomorrow. So I hope to meet you tomorrow 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. the same time. Take care and study well and revise your portions very well. God bless you all. Good night.